Hello, with this video we use a case study to show how DiAna can help us improving transparency, replicability, and quality of evidence in disproportionality analysis. We want to assess, in particular, the fire signal in 2016 concerning the possibility of aripiprazole-induced impulse control disorders, which are impulsive behaviors such as pathological gambling, hypersexuality, compulsive shopping, and binge eating. First thing, we set up DiAna, and this means that if we haven't done it before, we have to run the first two lines to install DiAna, then the third to import its function, and finally set up DiAna that allows us to download the files and ancillary datasets. And the files, as you can see below, is a set of datasets that are related and that store different information. We suggest to run these commands in a project inside a specific folder in the desktop, but we will provide in the future a video to show how to better set up DiAna. Here the first script in which we import DiAna and we specify the file's version, and this is important both for transparency and replicability, but also because this parameter is going to be used in other functions. Then we specify the drug of interest, aripiprazole, and the reactions of interest that are gambling, hypersexuality, compulsive shopping, hyperphagia, and kleptomania, 5 impulse control disorders, but also one well-known adverse reaction to aripiprazole, that is headache, and one of the indications for using aripiprazole, that is also a risk factor for impulsivity, bipolar disorder. And this is to show also like some positive and negative controls. Then we import the file's datasets concerning drug information and reaction information, and we perform the disproportionality analysis to check whether aripiprazole is indeed associated with the selected events. Then we use render forest function to show the information component, and here you see for the different events on the y-axis the information component that is one of the disproportionality index. And in particular, all the events apart from headache appear to be associated with aripiprazole. You can agree that if I share the script with you, well, you can easily replicate this study. You can also use this study design for similar inquiries, and even more important, you can make suggestions to improve my study design for my specific inquiry. For example, you could say that not taking into account duplicates may distort the results, that aripiprazole recipients that often have bipolar disorder may be more susceptible to impulse control disorders independently from the administration of aripiprazole, that sensitivity may be low because, for example, it is possible to refer to kleptomania not only with the term kleptomania but also with shopliftings, and that the warning may have caused over-reporting, distorting the signal, and we want to look at the evidence before the warning. And I can tell you that with DiAna we can confront with all these problems, and in particular we can remove duplicates, we can take care of biases restricting the analysis to reports recording bipolar disorders among the indication and reports submitted before the warning, and also we can implement custom groupings to use lists of terms to retrieve cases of interest. And now you can see the scripts of the sensitivity analysis. In particular, we need two further datasets, the demographic and the indication dataset, and we choose also to use the MEDRA. Alas, this function will not work for you because MEDRA is only available by subscription, but if you have access to it, then you can follow the GitHub, which will show you how to make this function work. And then we identify the duplicated reports, in particular using one column of the demographic that stores the results of one of at least two. Now there are two deduplication procedure, and in particular with this column we remove 3 million over 16 million reports based on the exact equivalence of 6 fields, and then we identify instead reports recording bipolar disorders among the indication using the MEDRA HLGT level, manic and bipolar mood disorder and disturbances. And finally, we identify reports submitted before the FDA warning. We take all these subgroups and we identify them as restriction on the right, as you can see in this list, and then we run in a loop the disproportionality analysis on these different subgroups. And finally, we redefine the selected reactions using multiple terms. You see here, for example, in gambling disorders, we also accept the term gambling. In hypersexuality, we have a lot of terms, and so on for hyperphagia and kleptomania and so on. And we perform again the disproportionality analysis and bind the results to the previous list of the results. And this, using the render forest function, we see that different study designs give indeed different results. In green, the previous analysis, and in orange, the duplicated analysis, and you see that in this case there is no much difference, particularly with this specific deduplication algorithm and in this case. But when we look at the disproportionality analysis with the custom groupings in blue, you see that kleptomania results in a much stronger signal, suggesting that many reporters prefer the term shopliftings to kleptomania. And then we look at the disproportionality analysis restricted to bipolar reports, and you see that we have weaker signals for all the impulse control disorders. And this suggests that indeed bipolar disorder is a risk factor for impulsivity, but does not manage to explain all the association between aripiprazole and impulse control disorders. And then we see instead that bipolar disorders disappear and headache is not affected, because bipolar disorder is not a risk factor for a headache. Then we can look at the pre-warning disproportionality analysis in brown, and you see that only affected here are the terms concerning impulse control disorders, in particular compulsive shopping, hypersexuality, and hyperphagia, while gambling disorder is not much affected. As you can see, again, headache does not result in a signal, and this signal may instead be found using other strategies, such as, for example, unmasking the signal, because we expect that many other drugs in the fires can induce migraine or headache, and these drugs should be removed from the restriction group. Finally, we can also apply all these strategies together, and you can see that already before the warning and taking into account possible biases, there was enough evidence to suspect that aripiprazole may indeed cause impulse control disorders, and therefore the warning was more than justified. And this is it with this case, but we will come later with more tutorials.